Hey friends and fam, this is Simply Rob, Vascular Rocket, spokesmodel for the 2023 HIV Stops With Me campaign, coming to you from Washington Heights in Uptown Manhattan with the September 2023 question of the month. Have you ever been marginalized while doing your HIV advocacy? If so, how did you feel? How did you handle it? Short answer, no. I have never felt or been marginalized while doing my HIV advocacy. I have, however, been confronted by ignorance and stigma and judgment in my personal life many times. I feel like it's less and less. Those experiences are less and less these days, as I think that, particularly here in New York, we've done a really good job of staying in these conversations and disseminating accurate information and the like. However, I think my most recent example of brushing up against that type of situation, like the stigma and the HIV phobia, is when I was looking to move about 3 years ago. I was living in the Bronx. There was a young couple who I had become familiar with on my routine of walking my dogs before and after work. Primarily, the young man, but it was a young couple with their infant child. They had a son that was under a year or maybe just over a year. And they had recently bought a 2 to 3 family house in the Bronx, and they were looking for a tenant to occupy the studio that had access to the backyard. And so we were in this conversation, and the three of us were very excited about the possibility of my tenancy to their landlordship. And we were at the point where we were getting ready to draw up the papers, the lease for me to sign, for us to sign, and for me to, hand over checks, when the question was posed, hey, by the way, what do you do for work? And so, I answered that I'm in HIV and sexual health. And he said, oh, how did you get into that work? From my experience, he's like, are you HIV positive? Most of the people that I know that are in that field are also HIV positive. And I said to him, well, I've been in the field since 1994, and I've met many people who are HIV negative in those years. I said, however, I happen to be HIV positive. And I remember that his response, for the most part was a positive one. And he said to me, wow, I feel like every time we speak, I learn something else about you. And and he told me that I was a really good guy, and that and we pretty much left it where we were going to take the next steps the next time we met. Later that day, I got a call from him, and he asked to meet me. He said he wanted to have a conversation in person that he would not rather have on the phone. And he informed me that he and his wife had a lengthy, very deep conversation, and that unfortunately, because of my HIV status, she did not feel comfortable with me moving into the home, in particular because she was afraid that I would somehow transmit the virus to the baby. And I was gut punched by this, and I could tell that he felt really bad. He said to me, like, I know there's no way that could happen. And I was like, no, there is no way. He's like, but please understand that my wife feels really uncomfortable. We just bought this new home. She's a new mother, and I have to stand by her on this. I can't create a situation where she's gonna feel uncomfortable in our new home. And how did I feel about that? Like, I aside from feeling a bit gut punched and feeling really sad because this seemed like an ideal situation, I chose, instead of resentment and anger and judgment, I chose acceptance and compassion, particularly for her, that I felt like I was missing out, but I know that they were missing out because I believe that I would have been an ideal tenant for them, a responsible tenant. And so in any case, I also chose to believe that God had something bigger and better in store for me, which he did, because I'm sitting in my apartment now, that I moved into. It'll be 3 years in March. officially, and I love it here, and it's been such a blessing. And so, yeah, so that's pretty much my story about the last time I felt, that I was marginalized, or, that I brushed up against the phobia, ignorant phobia stigma of HIV. So, with that said, HIV stops with me. My name is Simply Rob. If nobody told you yet today, let me be the first to say that I love you, coño de corazón, and have a beautiful day.